check just for me. Thank you. Just for me. All right, it's correct. Thank you very much and welcome to today's session. So you're welcome to Beyond Motivation. It's a part of our annual reset, but it's an opportunity for us to see why goals don't succeed. So this call is being recorded for trading and quality purposes, and I'm going to switch off I'm going to spotlight myself, and then I'll hand over the host reins back to the team. Okay, so welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is DK Jonah, and today's conversation is simply called Beyond Motivation. And we'll be looking at why goals don't succeed. But we're not going to be talking about goal setting today. No, that's the conversation for our workshop on the 11th of January. And I will share all the details about the workshop with you in a bit. But we all know ourselves here. We're going to do a little intro. Let me know in the chat where you're listening to me from. And number one, where are you listening to me from? And also tell me one thing you're looking forward to in 2025. So two things. Where are you listening to us from? And what are you looking forward to in the new year? So let's see the chat. I just want to know that people are still with us in the house. Okay. I'm just confirming if you can hear me. Yes, listening from Edo State. Who else? Ogun State. Okay, so we are all clear. And what's one goal you're looking forward to achieve in the new year? A goal you're looking forward to achieve in the new year. Let me know. So the thing is, number one, where are you listening to us from? And then something you're looking forward to achieving in the new year. Simple questions, right? All right. So we are, can someone read for me the chat, please? So I know that where everyone is listening from. If you're just joining us, welcome. We're just trying to get to know who is in the house and where they are listening from so that we can get an idea. Lagos, Nigeria, Edo State. So no one has a goal, as in everybody just listening from Lagos, but no one is sharing the goals or something they wish to achieve before the new year. Okay. Can you see my screen still? I'm going to make someone else the co-host so that I am spotlighted throughout and I'm not having my wonderful AI tool show up. All right. Where you're listening from and one thing that you're looking forward to achieve from this session or from for the new year. It could be either one. So welcome. Let me see if we've got any other person sharing where they're listening from. Oh, the last person that said was Lagos, Nigeria. So today's conversation is supposed to talk about why motivation is not enough. I don't know. Chidima is listening from Nigeria. Welcome, Chidima. I don't know if any of you served for NYSC, but when I was serving, there's something that one of the manual was used to say. He used to shout, "Are you motivated?" And they were supposed to shout, "Motivated, motivated, motivated." And that was supposed to get us motivated to do the exercises, but it never worked for me because no matter how it made me shout, "Am I motivated?" I wasn't motivated. It was just false hope, and it was just me getting tired of everything and I wanted to be out of there. So although motivation is important, motivation is necessary, it's not enough. So we want to go beyond motivation today. How can we go beyond motivation in order to help people achieve their goals? That's the objective of this conversation, going beyond motivation to ensure that we achieve the goals that we've set out for ourselves. And as much as we say, oh, new year, new resolutions, what we're going to be working on. And if you join us for the workshop, because I mentioned earlier that today we're not going to be talking about goal setting per se. We're going to be talking about the mindset we need to have when it comes to preparing ourselves for the future that we envision. And if you stay to the end of this session, these are a couple of things that we will cover. The first being that we're going to look at, sorry, my system is hanging. It happens. Technical issues. Okay, good. So we're going to understand the motivation's limitations. That's one thing I want us to explore. How relying solely on motivation often leads to disappointment and unfulfilled goals. Now, we're not saying motivation is not good, but remember the key word here is solely. We're also going to explore systematic approaches that you can use. So systems that can propel you towards your consistent progress. Most people make progress once and then they stop, or they try something once and then they stop. But what we'll be looking at today is how can you make consistent progress and be the best version of you, not just for one day, but for the rest of your life. And we're going to do something a little bit about looking at the habits you can develop for yourself to help you achieve the goals that you want to achieve, and then implement practical strategies. And you would leave this conversation with a workbook that would help you to not just reflect on the past, but plan for the future. Because everybody or most people are great at identifying the problem. However, when it comes to finding the solution and implementing the solution, there's always an issue because pointing out the problem is not difficult. It's saying, okay, I know the problem I am experiencing, and based on that, I want to change. So let's talk a little bit about motivation. Have you observed for yourself personally, and I would like to know in the chat, and someone will be monitoring the chat for me. Have you observed that sometimes you start off a project excited. You are very, very motivated. You are motivated. You are excited. If that has happened to you before, let me know. Or you can give us a thumbs up. You start off a project. The idea of the project, you're excited about it. When you start, you're excited. Has that ever happened to anybody? Then all of a sudden, you just lose the excitement, you lose the steam. In fact, you don't even feel like doing it. And our feelings enough to get us to do what we need to do because most people know what they have to do. In fact, almost everybody here knows that in order to lose weight, you should exercise, you should eat right, you should do this, but we don't do it. We know that in order to pass our exams, we should study, we should ask questions, we should sit in front and not at the back. But most people don't do it. As a lecturer, you know that your notes should be prepared, but you should also be looking at life outside lecturing. But we don't do this. So we know what to do. We just don't do it consistently. And no one is giving us a pat on the back when we do it once or we do it consistently. So we are going to have to get ourselves excited, get ourselves motivated that even though no one is seeing what we have done, we have acknowledged that we've done something and we have to do it. So I want this to be as interactive as possible. So nobody here starts off excited and then and then we don't do it. And some of us, when we were younger, we were doing all these things. When we had structure, when we had someone telling us what to do. Because you know that if you don't do it, your mom is going to be on your case. But some of us are now the parents, and we will not take from our children what we give ourselves. I've said this many times, but most people are more worried about letting others down than letting themselves down. So we start off excited. We know we are supposed to do X, Y, Z, but then we just all of a sudden don't do it. So what's stopping you? And I want you to be able to answer that question for yourself at the end of this session. You need to do your own homework by yourself. No one is going to rescue you. You need to be your own hero. Wear your cape. Although Edna says no cape, if you get that reference, you're a cartoon head like me. You need to be your own hero. You need to come and rescue yourself from the place we've dug ourselves into. Because intentionally or unintentionally, by our actions and inconsistency, we may have dug ourselves into a pit that the only person that can rescue us is us. Now, I am not saying you don't need others. Don't get me wrong. What I am saying is simply this. Sometimes, although you need others, you need yourself first. You need to show up for yourself before you show up for others. If you're on a plane, they tell you to wear your oxygen mask first. You could be motivated to help your child at that point in time, but you cannot because you've not worn your own oxygen mask, so you cannot see clearly. And one thing I always talk about is the fact that clarity is one of the most important things we need in this world. Most times we don't have clarity. We are just going on fighting other people's battles, watching or following other people's dreams and what society and the world has dictated for us, that we fail to see that we are missing on the most important things in life. Being there for ourselves, showing up for ourselves, being our true selves, because we're trying to please others. And the world doesn't make it easy for us. So the world doesn't. Bills will come, life will come, everybody is progressing, and you are like, oh, I wish I could be like everybody. But everybody else has been taken. You haven't been taken. So why are you trying to be like other people when you are still there? So the person missing from this whole equation is you, no one else. So there's this myth of motivation. Are you aware that 80% of New Year resolutions fail by January 15th? It's actually a day that people celebrate. It's not celebrate. You know, these days we have National Day of this. January 15th is National Days of Resolutions Dying. So it's the graveyard of all goals and graveyard of all dreams. People are aware. So if we have these shocking statistics that people that write their goals succeed, like we talked about last time, people that have self-accountability succeed, why are we still not moving forward? Because the world has given us a false hope that motivation is enough. And anytime I say, are you motivated? You have to say motivated, 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 because that's what my manual voice tell me in NYSC camp. You must answer him 3 times. So enthusiasm is needed. So motivation can get you to start, but it's not a reliable path to achieving lasting results. So what we are looking at is we're not looking at the frustration of high hopes followed by disappointment. No, I don't know about you, but I'm tired of that. So how do you overcome the motivation hurdle? How do you go away from just having simple motivation and that desire to start a new project to doing it even if you are not motivated as you think you should be? So there are strategies to pull you through this. But first of all, we have to understand something. There is a motivation cliff. And this is something that I recently discovered. And it refers to that steep drop in motivation after the initial excitement. So we know the drop is coming. We're aware the drop is coming. So there is a drop. There is that part when you don't feel excited at all to do anything whenever you start. I am someone that when I start a project, I am excited. But somewhere along the line, if something happens, I may just lose the steam. So we are all humans. It happens even to the best of us. So the excitement wears off, the reality of life that you understand that there are other things apart from this goal that is existing rather. So this is what I mean. When we have a goal, the world doesn't stop for us to achieve that thing. No, other things are going on simultaneously. So when that excitement wears off early in the process, sometimes is a couple of weeks. And I want someone to guess in the chat. I'll tell you how many weeks. Guess in the chat how many weeks it takes for the excitement to wear off. I've given you expo and initially. And this 2025, we're not doing new year, new me, because it has been new year, new you every you, but it's same you and it's not changing. It's important to understand that human psychology to feel excited initially is real. But sustained motivation requires deeper thinking. It requires more than a spark. The cliff marks the point where people abandon their goals. And we said for resolution, sometimes it's January 15th. I've given you another clue. Apart from the cliff, there is now a trap. So when you get to the cliff and you drop, you now get stuck in a trap. Now, this trap is this circle that you go through of burst of motivations. You will take action. Then you believe that motivation is the key to success. You are excited and you are in this trap. You are in this box that you have put yourself into. Because when you got to the cliff and you knew that the excitement wears off for you, you did not prepare for that trap. It's a trap because motivation is inconsistent. You're not motivated the same way all the time. National grid, something happens, your motivation drops. No matter how excited you are, there are certain things happening in every nation right now that is leading people not to be motivated. This comes with frustration first. Then there's this guilt. I don't know about you people, but as in, I couldn't do my PhD. There was the frustration first of finding a supervisor. All your lecturers wanted you to do a PhD. Then there was the guilt and shame and believe that, oh, maybe I should just keep pushing. But I've struggled all my life with dyslexia and autism, and I did not know, but I was struggling. There is no relief in that circle of guilt and shame, especially if you do not position yourself properly. When you keep pushing through, something happens. You realize that you only do what you're motivated to do. So you're not building new habits, you are giving excuses. You know what makes you procrastinate, but you are not doing anything about it. That's why it's important to know that you are in a trap. If you don't know you are in a trap, how do you get yourself out of it? So lack of awareness is not enough. It's still going to happen. You're still going to fall into get to the cliff, and then at the edge of the cliff, you fall into a trap. So the cliff comes before the trap, and what you have to do is you know this, remember the cliff and the trap. You start a new goal excited, then you get to the this thing, you surpass their initial motivation and you fall off the cliff into a trap. And that trap, you stay there because of lack of motivation. So there is a cycle, and you can take this. I asked the question before, and the answer is here. The initial surge of getting excited about it, that strong desire to do it. There is this sustained effort. Everybody is wondering, you've gone to the gym 5 times this week. You are excited. You're not even looking at yourself. Then there's the plateau or the decline. And this takes about 2 to 3 weeks. Let me see if anybody got the answer in the chat. 2 weeks, 2 weeks, yes, 2 to 3 weeks. So it shows you were listening. It takes about 2 to 3 weeks for you to actually decline. So people, just imagine that decline has led to heartbreak. Hmm? And you keep going through that how many times in a year for the rest of your life. It's not easy to get help if you don't know that you need help. If you don't realize that there is a problem, it's not easy to get help. So the number of resolutions that fail, 92% of resolutions fail. 92%. And there is a success gap that because 8%, only 8% of people that are motivated to do things actually succeed. Only 8%. And those people have discipline, they have focus, they have this. So they have something extra. They have what I call self-mastery, which was my word for the year. but they have self-mastery. All right, I forgot to mention this. If you have any comments, please leave your comments in the chat. And if you have any questions, leave your questions in the chat. So our rule is this, rule number one, comments, write comments, and then you write your comments so we can make this interactive. Questions, write questions, and you can then ask your question as we go. But just 8% of people that have that are motivated succeed. So there's a success gap, a 90% success gap. What happens with this thing is because there's this, they know something, they have a system. They know that there's willpower dependence. They cannot be dependent on willpower alone. They know that other people don't have something they have. There's a lack of structure. That is a system that you are missing, and there's inconsistent results. Motivation-based results, if you are relying on motivation alone, motivation-based results are not consistent. Just you have sporadic success here and there, and that's not enough for you. One thing that most people have is they lack accountability. And I'm going to throw shots here. You are able to point out when every other person is doing something wrong, but you don't know when you're doing something wrong, or you are in denial, or you have a bias towards yourself where you believe you are the best in the world and you are never going to do anything wrong. So I call this the accountability void. There's a lack of personal accountability. So you have your solo journey struggles, but you don't even see it because there's a lack of motivation. You do not do something that you're supposed to do, which is reflection. So there's no objective feedback that you are giving yourself. And then there's a loss of momentum. The truth is this, externally to the world, you are very successful. Externally to every single person, you are hitting all the marks. You are progressing in your career. In church, you are wonderful. Everywhere, everybody sees the family, but deep down in yourself, you know that something is missing. Is that accountability void? So, because when it comes to external things, you succeed. But internally, when only you knows that this is what you set for yourself, you never get it done. You need the applause of the world. And it's best you know this now because a bad day for your ego is a good day for your soul. Most times we want to keep on stroking our egos and seeing like everything is okay. But what you're going to be doing in the next couple of weeks, if you sit down with our workbook, is analyzing your ego, letting go of the guilt and shame, and facing reality. It's like you stand in front of a mirror every day, but you don't see yourself. We need to see ourselves. So how do we see ourselves? We mentioned a couple of things. We said that there's a solo journey struggles because there's a lack of motivation, there's a missing reflection, and there's loss of momentum. We also talked about the systems gap, that you don't have a structure. And the author of Atomic Habits says that you don't fall to the standards of your goals, you rise to the standards of your systems. I am paraphrasing. I always paraphrase, trust me. But there are tools that can help you move from motivation alone, depending on motivation, to ensuring that you build a system that works for you, not for anyone else. I remember studying in uni. I always tried studying in groups. My first year, my second year. By my third year, I realized that, see, this is not working for me. I need to be alone to study. So I had to understand myself. By the time I got to my master's again, I understood more about my study habits. By the time I got to my second master's, I knew much more about my study habits for my MPhil. That is why I always talk about using the tools that are created for you. So I'm an introverted introvert that loves being introverted. And I was trying to be like everyone else. So I'm trying to study like the extrovert, act like the extrovert. So I wasn't even seeing myself. These tools are for you to see yourself, determine the ones that work for you, and then build. So I'm not just going to give you a tool that is one size fits all. I want you to, and I want you to write in the chat if you're to see if you're still with me. I will use these tools to work for me. I will, no, let's put it this way. I will personalize these tools. That's it. So that's what I'm asking you to do. And if I don't see I will personalize these tools, I'm not going to move forward. But why am I saying personalize these tools? No one knows you like you know yourself. I am someone that even if I have an iPad, I need paper. I need to be able to write. So if you look around my study area, I always have loose sheets of paper, even if I have notebooks, because I have to put pen to paper and actually write. And then I love textures of paper. The paper has to be smooth. So those are things that I love. And I will have my notebooks. So, yes, if people are still with me, I'll personalize this too. So, why am I saying this? What makes you happy when you want to do things? Most of us, when it comes to work, when it comes to anything, we have either of two things. One, when we were growing up, we saw study, we saw work as punishment. So we are approaching things with that same attitude, like I am being punished. Nobody likes me. Oh, I'm supposed to be having fun. So even if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you're doing it with that mindset. So you have a negative attitude to getting things done. Two, we actually did all those things. We enjoyed it, but we feel that we lost a part of our childhood that we're trying to regain it. So we are now we have a kind of a subconscious bias towards work, towards improving ourselves. Oh, but I did everything I was supposed to do. Some of us fall right in the middle. We played small, we liked work small, we were in the middle, but wherever you fall, these tools will definitely help you. And they are not tools that you can start building, and not, some of them are not physical tools, but I call them tools because they are things that you need. And the very first one is reflection. Any meaningful change to go from just relying on motivation to actually seeing where you need help, it starts with you reflecting. It starts with you slowing down. I always talk about slowing down. Most people don't want to slow down. This season, like I said earlier, it's for us to slow down. So we started with the declutter challenge. We didn't just move into the annual reset. We started with the declutter challenge, which was forcing people to slow down and start reflecting on certain things. So now that your mind is going into that, we now decided to bring this webinar. And after that, there is something else, and then there is the workshop on the 11th of January. So there is an opportunity for us to flow into it. Now, productivity starts with jaga jaga. Most of us, we don't want to make a mess. We don't want to make chaos. We want everything to be perfect. But imperfection is actually good for us to gain insights on how we do things. I always say that the best tool you can have is your data. But how do you get your data when you are not reflecting? So reflection gives you an opportunity to get your data. So I will talk about a time log. And the time log is a tool that I have always said we should keep. But we're going to take a step further from just keeping a time log to actually look for patterns. And when we get these patterns, we now use this tool to improve the way we get things done. So whether you're someone that uses your phone, whether you're someone that uses a notebook, whatever, if you have apps that help you, whatever you use that helps you be the best version of yourself, you need to use the data that you have. Now, whose data are you using? Your data, your personal data, and nobody can get your data like you. Nobody. Because even if someone should ask me, how am I feeling now? I can say fine. And even if I'm not fine, the person doesn't know. What did you do what you were supposed to do yesterday? If I'm having my accountability call, and I can tell my coach, yes, I did it. But time will tell. Time will tell when you are lying to yourself and lying to others. This is not for us to sugarcoat and say make everything perfect, but rather this is for us to understand that in order to be the best versions of ourselves, we need to have that honest talk with ourselves. I may move to the worksheet if there is time to show you how it is done, but we are looking at the power of reflection. Now, the workbook, I have made it very detailed. I have added information so that even if I'm not sitting with you, you have notes to read because I like book. You have notes to read, then you have the worksheet. So if time permits, I would walk you through it. But just know this, there has to be that regular reflection of your personal data. You're making it a consistent practice daily, weekly, monthly. and you're integrating these insights into your routines. You're asking the questions and you are answering. Now, I say keep a time log. So a time log is you sitting down and writing your intention for 24 hours and then your actions. So for example, the way you have a calendar that says 1 to 2, 2 to 3, that's how the time log will be. But we'll talk more about it then. So we have, before we just had intentions, we have actions, and we have insights. But we've added 2 more columns to it. So why are we going from just setting your intentions? Because you must set your intentions the night before to say, this is what I intend to do. But some of us don't even have our eyes on our data, especially if you are a freelancer. If you're a freelancer and you're single, you have more time than any other person. So everybody tries to occupy your time. So you don't know where the time has gone. But if you can track your time effectively, you understand what drains your energy, what energizes you, what you'll have done differently. Some of us just go about our day without doing that. Then the power of reflection. Why do I say we should reflect? Because it helps us to identify patterns. We'll talk more about patterns later, but it reveals gaps. Patterns reveal gaps that exist that you may not know if you are not paying attention. So you have to pay attention to yourself. Now, what I'm requesting you do with the workbook is not going to be easy. Do it. You won't get it right the first time. Do it. You may not get it right the second time. Still use these resources. Why? You need to actually take responsibility for yourself. We may not have the resources to do everything we want to do, but one resource we have is time. I don't have $1 million to start my stationery business. I don't have $10,000 to start my stationery business alone. Life happens, but we don't have $10,000 to invest in a stationery business. But I have 24 hours to invest in the stationery business. Some of us, we want to invest only when we have money. I was telling somebody, person was like, oh, when I start a business, I said, you don't need money to start a business. And he was angry. It's like, oh, what do you mean by that? This. And I said, sometimes you need time first. You need time, you need attention, you need discipline. These are things that you need. And when you reflect, it helps you see the gaps between your intentions and your actions. This then helps guide your decision making and boost your self accountability. Because, like I said earlier, most of us are not accountable to ourselves. So when you reflect, what happens? It gives you self-awareness. Oh, I'm scrolling on TikTok for 5 hours instead of doing this. Okay. Now that I know that I scroll on TikTok, that is maybe a way for me to distract myself. That may be, so I'm going to be using my own experience. That may be a way for me to distract myself. When I am not doing what I am supposed to do, why am I not doing it? So I get insights because there's self-awareness. Now I have insight. If I have insight and I don't change, then I am not honest. But if there's course correction after you get insight, then there's something fantastic that happens. But you need tools to help you do that. So with a time log, what do? We record, we review, we reflect, and we refine. And I will explain this. So the 4 hours of time log is record, meticulous tracking. I'm really tempted to go to the time log to show it. Lucky, let me know if you think it's a good idea. I go to the time log now. Record, meticulously keeping this. Now, someone says, oh, this will take too much time. I don't have the time. What are you doing with the time? That time you're using to say, I don't have time, is time that you will have used to record your stuff. It's time that you would have used to actually do it. At the end of each day or week, examine your time log. You're looking for patterns. You're looking for surprises. You're looking for discrepancies. The reason I stopped, because when I started keeping time logs in 2016, 17, all I used to say is, this is what I did. But the reason I started putting actions and intentions in was because sometimes what I intended to do wasn't done. So what are the actions I now took? Okay, what happened? I have to ask myself those questions. So if I was supposed to be cooking from 2 to 4, and I ended up not cooking because I had an emergency and I had to go out, I can write that. But if I was supposed to be cooking between 2 to 4 and somebody called me and started gisting, and I write it there, I was on the phone for 2 hours or 4 hours. I'm like, okay, how can I prevent that? So how did I prevent that? My phone goes on do not disturb. Now, one thing I realized being a freelancer is this. The people we work with sometimes have a 9 to 5, and so do our friends. When our friends are out of work, they want to come and have conversations with us, but sometimes that's when our work is just starting. So we do not have that luxury of getting on a call with people because we are building something great. We don't have that luxury of getting a paycheck at the end of every month because we are living from invoice to invoice. Trust me, my team will tell you this. Living from invoice to invoice is like the worst thing ever because you are chasing people. But if you have a fixed salary, salary comes, then I can't now, the person that is sure they're going to get money, be using time to talk to them on the phone unless it's an emergency, unless I am talking somebody off the cliff. But if I realize I'm always talking people off the cliff and nobody is talking to me while I'm in the valley, then there is a problem. Then you have to make refinement. We get this data, we have this data, but we do not reflect on it to consider the implications. And then after doing that, we don't refine it. So everybody here, we get a time log that they can keep for a week. And then this is a process you keep repeating over time. If you understand that the Christmas break, everybody will be at home and you still want to do some active work, maybe 2 hours a day, then you fix that time on your calendar and then you find yourself seated and ready to do it. If anybody is just and you just think about it. If you had think about yourself $1 million in advance and you are doing the work that you have, anytime you book that work, you are working towards that 1 million. So even if anybody calls you and it's not for something serious, you'll be like, I am busy. But this, so when you keep a time log, something happens. This is your second tool. You recognize patterns. Now, patterns are quiet directors of your daily life. I talked about the fact that I scroll on TikTok. It's a pattern. Although your phone gives you usage of how you're using social media, I would say I'm using it for research purposes. So my phone can't tell me anything because I'm not accountable to anybody per se. Okay. If I realize that when I wake up, the first thing I do is check my phone and start going on TikTok, there is a problem. But if I don't realize it, there is an even bigger problem because I cannot see the patterns. Patterns for you, think about the invisible threads that weave together your choices, your reactions, and ultimately your results. No one is perfect. Remember what I said. Productivity starts with jaga jaga. It starts with you doing it scattered, but you don't even have a scattered pattern to work with. When you started writing and drawing, my handwriting is still ugly, so that's different for me. But you started writing roughly, you started writing, it wasn't clear. All of a sudden, because you continued, you were able to start comprehending things, writing to understand. But if we don't follow patterns, we are in trouble, big trouble. So the quiet directors of your daily life are your patterns. And nobody is going to collect that data from you. Remember, we're working from data, our own data, and our data is based on our choices, reactions, and that determine our results. But most importantly, it's based on the patterns. The patterns we observe or we don't observe, they're still there. If I don't observe that I'm always eating 3 a.m. in the morning, I am still eating 3 a.m. in the morning. If I don't observe that, oh, if I don't do X, Y, Z the night before, I don't get anything done. I still don't get anything done. So we need to look at pattern recognitions. Patterns matter more than goals. Now, somebody will say, what do you mean? But goals are important. You talk about goals all the time. Yes, I do. I talk about goals all the time, but the patterns, the things you do are more important than just setting goals. Now, I am not saying don't set goals, but hear me out. So when we set a goal, we decide, this is where I want to go, right? Does everybody agree with me? A goal is something that you want to achieve. It's a task, it's an objective, it's a mission, it's something, it is where you want to go, what you want to do. That is your goal. Let me see if people are still with me. So does everybody agree with that? Thumbs up if you agree with that as a definition, as our working definition of goals. If we now look at goals and we just leave it there, we won't succeed. But what makes these goals succeed are about us, not just observing our data. Remember, we started with reflection and observation, but understanding your patterns. So it's like knowing the actual road you are taking to get there. In order for me to write my book, I need to sit down and walk. I need to pay attention. In order for me to walk, I need music. So I realized that although, yes, I was using TikTok, I was telling Emma the other day, once I have this headset on and I have my playlist, my calm playlist, I'm in a better state of mind to walk. There was a time I talked about it, and my prayer pattern was playing this music and then praying. That was a pattern. Your patterns can work against you. As you're trying to get to your destination, your patterns work against you. So pattern recognition is about finding your flow and working with that flow. Because they can be good patterns and they can be bad patterns. But finding your flow. Because once we find our patterns, these are the things we get. So how do we unlock pattern recognition? We can identify our productivity peaks. So we can identify when we are more energized, which one is our prime hour for tackling. Some people will say I'm an early bird or a night owl. For me, it depends on my mood. But if I don't sleep, I have a knot in my stomach and I am not able to function. Now, I can function without sleeping, but there are some times that my body just tells me, forget it, you've done too much, you need to rest. I'm not at my peak at that period. You also have to know when your energy dips. Some people, after being on a call for 2 hours, their energy dips. Some people, it's 30 minutes. The reason I broke my co-working session to 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the evening is this. 2 hours in the morning because it's not the moment it's 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock that people get into that mood. They don't have the energy. Some people will get into that mood and have that energy after talking to people and interacting, and then you now get into work. So that's when their energy gets up. But their energy starts dipping after 1 hour, 30 minutes or so. So we have 15 minutes to get into the mood, 1 hour, 30 minutes of work, 15 minutes to check out, and we are done. When does your energy dip? Do you know? I realize that my energy dips when I'm with too many people studying, when I have too many voices, everybody is talking. I cannot function. So I don't function properly. So I need to recharge and then come into people. We also have to understand our distractions. Pinpoint common distractions. The reason my phone started going on do not disturb because my phone was a major distraction. I was always getting distracted by others because there was the awareness that, and there is still that awareness that DK is a fixer. She's our Oliver Pope. If you need anything fixed, call DK. If she doesn't know what to do, she will figure out what to do or she will find someone to do it. Those are my distractions. So as much as I want to help people, I have to realize that it's a distraction and I have to mind myself it's this thing. And task clustering. Some of us know the type of tasks that we can do together and some tasks that we need to do alone. And we'll talk a bit about task management when we talk about attention. So how do you apply your pattern insights? Remember, we started with the 4 hours. Let's go back to that so that you will see what we talked about. We said record, review, reflect, refine. If you want to take a screenshot of this page, please do, because the slides won't be available this time. Record, review, reflect, refine, 4 hours. And now that we have these, we have to now go to the next one after getting those 4 hours. It's now to analyze the data. You've drawn conclusions. You're looking at your patterns now. You experiment and you refine your approach. Sometimes when we refine, we leave it at that. But after refinement, you still come back and analyze your data because you've made 1 or 2 changes or you've kept it constant. Then you draw your conclusions to say your energy dips here. You are not able to focus after 2 hours. You can go 6 hours, but you have to do that 6 hours deep work once in a while to focus. Then some people are not willing to experiment. I always say, do jaga jaga when you're trying to be productive. And this is what I mean. Make it rough. Don't make it pretty all the time. Experiment. Pull from east, west, north, south. Pull from the medical field, pull from the research field, pull from the arts. You have an opportunity to pull everything that you love to refine your own approach. Your approach is important. So this is when we talk about personalizing it and becoming more intentional. That's when personalization, especially because of your patterns. Now, attention. Attention is a currency. It's a major, major currency that most people don't know. We talked about time being a currency. Attention is another currency. 2002, 2003, the early 2000s, attention was a currency, but we always felt that children could go out and play. They were not being distracted by mobile devices. Social media companies were not trying to make money off people's attention. Now, when we add social media initially, companies didn't take it serious. Churches didn't take it serious. Nobody took it serious. It was just another thing that these children want to do. People did not even see the money in it. But now that they realize that if they can keep you glued on the platform, they are making money. So you may not be paying people with money when you pay attention to their music, their social media. You are the one that knows their children, their grandchildren, everything. You've never met these people, but you're paying them with your attention. But now we're talking about attention from a different perspective, your attention and how you work. So I want you to think of attention as a lens through which you experience and interact with the world. And the world has seen how expensive attention is, and they're trying to rid you of that attention, take you from focusing on what's important. But unlike time, which flows consistently, attention is more a spotlight that can be sharp and focused or diffused and scattered. So right now, our attention is diffused and scattered because we are in different pots, especially when it comes to the things that we should be doing. So what do we need? We need to understand that when it comes to getting things done, which is the only area we're going to look at attention from, attention is your core resource. So we're not looking at time management, we're looking at task management. How do you manage the tasks that you do? Because we've talked about refinement, we looked at patterns. You are now saying, okay, I have tasks that I need to do. You've identified your patterns, how you work, but now you said, okay, these are the things I need to do. It's like this. You need to understand that not all tasks require the same amount of focus. Not all tasks require the same amount of attention. So I always talk about task management from this perspective: your maximum attention task, your medium attention task, and your minimum attention task. That's maximum attention task. This is maximum attention task, what I'm doing with you. Now, for you, it can be a medium attention task because you're not the one speaking, but you can be knitting and listening. You can be doing other things and listening because you need medium attention to do it. Minimum attention is routine and low concentration. You don't even need to concentrate so much. So sometimes just responding to a phone call while you're cooking is minimum attention task. So for freelancers and for people that are working on their own side hustle or something they want to do. This may not apply to your 9 to 5, but if you apply this to your 9 to 5, you'll be surprised at the speed at which you will get things done. So maximum attention task, you can't do that task and do something else. Some of us don't give our best because when we're writing reports, when we're doing deep research, we want to be doing that and doing something else completely. Your attention is divided. That is why you are not getting the best results. So maximum attention task, maximum focus. These are tasks that and sometimes I used to say it's just maybe 2 to 3 hours. It doesn't even matter the number of hours, but it's the amount of focus and importance of the work. It is critical work that can determine if you succeed or fail. It is intense work. Medium attention tasks and maximum attention tasks could be interchanged. So sometimes some tasks that I'm doing could be medium attention one day and maximum the next. But what you just need to understand is rather than trying to do 20 things on your to-do list, this is what I suggest. I suggest you have one maximum attention task every day, 2 medium attention tasks, and 3 minimum attention tasks. There is no need moving to add a zillion things to your list of to-do things. Your to-do list, your list of things to do, and then you don't do any. So when you're setting your intentions after you've kept your time log, you're starting with, and you build this yourself, your maximum attention task, your medium attention task, and your minimum attention task. I am not saying put 5 maximum attention tasks in one day. It's going to be difficult to accomplish. Now, when you're in the office and you have deadlines, there are some times that, yes, we have to do certain things, but is it the right way to always put your body under that strain? No. As much as possible, think about it that way. Now, maximum attention tasks are critical and they're demanding activities that require deep focus and concentration. So for me, lecturing, brainstorming with certain people. If I'm brainstorming with a client, that's a maximum attention task. So these tasks have to be scheduled. And when you know your patterns, when you know when your energy is at the highest, schedule this for those periods. Because you want to use your highest cognitive capacity in order for you to achieve this. You do not want to fail in this maximum attention task because a failure in the maximum attention task could not just affect you, but it could ruin the lives of others. So if you are an architect and your maximum attention task is not done properly, lives could be endangered. But because some of us are not in such a position that the actions we take endanger lives, we don't care. We just do it wuru to the answer. Although I say creativity, productivity, everything starts with jaga jaga, it doesn't end with jaga jaga. We have to be intentional about the way we do things and make everything we do count. There's this carelessness that we have when it comes to doing certain things because no one is watching. If you were a doctor, will you allow you treat yourself the way you treat your maximum attention task? Most of us will answer no. As much as possible, create a distraction-free zone. Depending on you, 90 to 120 minutes. If you can focus for 90 minutes, use the Pomodoro method. Do 25 minutes work, 5 minutes rest. If you're somebody that takes a break and you know that once you take a break, your concentration is broken, do it your way. So though I say use Pomodoro, if Pomodoro no dey work for you, don't use Pomodoro. But we don't want mental fatigue. We want you to maintain highest quality of output based on your input. Then the other two balance your workload. So they are your medium attention tasks and your minimum attention task. Medium attention tasks, they are important that don't require your absolute peak focus, but they are also important. They can include meetings, lectures, depending, email correspondence, project planning, simple things. Why the minimum attention are routine things, low concentration activities. That one you can multitask. With maximum attention task, I say monotask. focus on just that task. But with the others, I can understand why you can want to multitask with them. But with that deep focus one, we are not multitasking. And there's a relationship between your attention and energy. Because in order for us to do work, there are other types of energy, but I won't talk about it now. It's in your worksheet. But like I said, if you come for the workshop on the 11th of January, you'll be able to at least build your system. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about that. Energy attention relationship. You have your mental energy, you have your emotional energy, you have your physical energy. If you know that talking to certain people frustrates your life and gets you emotionally drained, then you should know that you shouldn't talk to those people if you can avoid it, because it influences the way you get things done, especially someone like me. I'm an emotional worker. Physical energy, mental energy, you just have to think about focus. Now, we've talked about all these things. We've talked about the fact that we need attention, we need reflections, and we need patterns. So when I call them practical tools, I said they are not physical things that you can use like an hammer or something, but they are things that, if done properly, could improve the way you get things done. So, what if you could track your time and identify patterns that keep you stuck? What if you could focus your energy on fewer high impact tasks? What if you had a plan to turn reflection into intentional progress? Do you believe that you will be able to accomplish the things you want to accomplish? Let me know in the chat. Because we talked about the fact that identifying the problem is not enough. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We talked about the fact that identifying the problem is not good enough, but looking at the solutions. The solutions are you understanding that it's not enough for you to realize that I didn't get everything done on my to-do list. I had goals set at the beginning of this year. I did not achieve all that. We can do all the guilt and shame tripping we want to do. That we fall into the motivation trap, we get to the motivation cliff. We've identified all those things. But if there's a system that can help you accomplish the things that you want to accomplish, won't we do that? We will use it, because you can achieve your goals with the methodical action plan that we already have talked about in the past. And the methodical action plan is an action plan that helps you achieve the goals that you set for yourself. Now, I mentioned that we're not talking about goal setting today, but it's just good for us to understand what we'll be focusing on January 11th. Most times our goals don't succeed because our values and our goals are not connected. We have not been able to refine our focus to decide what we are focusing on. And we've not made commitments and resolutions with ourselves on what we're trying to do or what we need to do for ourselves in order for us to move forward. We're using a blueprint that was created by certain people in certain cultures that may not work for our culture. So most of the blueprints and all these other things that were created by Jim Rohn and all these other Western people about goal setting and things may not work for you. So it's about building your own personal one that works for the person you are, not the person you wish you were. And once you have your goals, you need to build a system that holds it up. So you're building that system by yourself because you're going to identify your obstacles. Remember, we said when you keep your time log and you do certain things, you will be able to determine how have I failed in the past from succeeding or failed from achieving my goals rather. You'll be able to identify your obstacles in the second phase. And then that comes to your task management. We've talked a little bit about this, but there's much more to that. And then workflow optimization. What tools can you use? What ways can you improve yourself? The AI revolution is amazing. It's fantastic. Many people don't want to use AI because they think AI is kind of going to make them lazy. But I have a secret, and it's this. AI makes you better. It's the people that learn how to maximize AI and put it to good use that would succeed and will be irreplaceable, because artificial intelligence still needs human intelligence, and human intelligence, by being doing what people did in the past about social media. Remember, I mentioned it to say, oh, social media is not good. It's this. They are late to the party. They are not even understanding how things work. But you have a front row seat to ensuring that you use artificial intelligence to amplify your voice, amplify your skills, collapse time, and focus on what really matters. And I think that's another conversation for another day. But I just talking about workflow and a couple of things. Then the last part of this map that we talked about is your accountability system. We talked about the fact that we are not accountable to ourselves, first of all. So there has to be that reflective accountability in whatever we do. But most people fail because when motivation comes and they get to that cliff and they fall into the trap, they stay there. They don't know how to maintain momentum. So I have momentum. How do I sustain it? We'll be talking more about that in the workshop in January. Then how do I now sync the strategy based on my patterns, based on all the things that I know in order to improve myself? Because when we think about goals, it's not just about setting goals, it's about being aware of who you are. So let's talk about patterns. Being aware of your patterns, accepting your patterns, and taking action, not just once, but taking action consistently. And these are things we need to do to succeed. However, if we don't have these things and we still want to succeed, the worksheet will help you. But there are a couple of things I would like you to know before we go. Motivation fades over time. It's temporal, it's not permanent, it's not something that you can bottle. If motivation could be bottled and we could all drink it, we would all be drinking it. Motivation is a starting point, not the end point. You need sustainable strategies to build momentum. You need sustainable strategies to be the best version of yourself. You don't need strategies that would make you to keep hustling. Now, most of the strategies I talk to you about are making you slow down in order to go fast. And when you learn to slow down, look at your patterns, we are not doing this to now make you pile up more. Rather, we're looking at it to ensure that you are not in the rat race where you're chasing, and you don't even know what you're chasing anymore. But you're able to live an intentional life and give yourself that permission to think, to use your skills to be the best version of yourself. So there are two parts. There's the self-implementation part where you can just take this workbook and do everything, and we'll go to the workbook. Or you can attend the annual reset for that complete system implementation that I talked about that we're going to be doing. So annual reset 2.0 is on January 11th. I know that I mentioned that, but before we go to that, how do you overcome these common obstacles that are preventing you from doing certain things? Remember, I said it's not about piling up so much. So take another screenshot of this page. I want you to understand the procrastination is just there to prevent you from doing certain things because sometimes you made up your mind that you are not capable of doing it. So there's something called a 2-minute rule that I want you to think about. I want you to think about starting those tasks and any task that will take less than any task you're supposed to do or anything that you're supposed to do that takes less than 2 minutes, do it immediately. You will deal with overwhelm. We have our own strategy of dealing with overwhelm, which is your list management and the attention. You may be familiar with the Eisenhower matrix. Focus on what's important and urgent. You can delegate certain things and you can eliminate the less critical ones. Lack of motivation is not an excuse. Sometimes we are not motivated because we've not connected our goals to the bigger goal or bigger objective, or our task rather to the bigger objectives that we want to achieve. So we are visualizing the outcomes, and we've talked about distraction a couple of times. This is something else I want you to think about. When we identify patterns, what do we do? Because sometimes we want to build habits and one habit is connected to the other. The habit of discipline is connected to other things. So we want to do something I call habit stacking for sustainable success. This is the last expo I'm giving you for sustainable success. So think about, and you can share in the chat. So we'll do this task quickly. Think about foundational habits that will have a ripple effect. Going to bed early is a foundational habit that may have ripple effects because it can impact other areas. Once you are sleeping properly and you're disciplined enough to go to bed early, it impacts the way you start your day. It impacts the way you get other things done. So you want to create an habit change. So I have chosen the habit of journaling before going to bed. Okay. Journaling before going to bed is something that I want to do. So, another habit I'll be adding to that is the routine of playing my music or choosing my music before I go to bed, preparing the things I need for the next morning before going to bed. So I'm stacking things that are connected. One reason people struggle a lot is, yes, one reason people struggle a lot is that they are trying to when they want to start building great habits, they're trying to build great habits in areas that are not connected. So deep reflection makes you understand your patterns. That if you don't plan the night before, you are not able to do anything the next morning. If I rush in the morning, my day is not good. I have to start my morning slow. My morning starting slow starts the night before. So there's that habit chain. So if I realize that I have started the night before and I have planned the next day, I just sit down in the morning, I confirm what I have done, said I will do, these are my intentions. I do my morning pages if I can. And then if I've done my morning pages for a month or two, I go on my artist dates. Evaluate and adjust periodically. Understand that certain things are connected. Some of you don't need a reward. You just clap for yourself. If that's your reward, someone like me, that's even fine for me. I get excited that I was able to accomplish something. Or I call my bestie. I'll be like, oh, this. There are certain people that you want to share that news with. But stacking habits for sustainable success is your responsibility. I always say this, do not outsource your personal development to anybody. Growing up, your academic part was kind of outsourced to the educational system. For those of us that are still students, it kind of still is. But now we are in a generation where you can have two parts. So you're a student, but your personal growth and development is based on you, no one else. So you are not outsourcing that. You are going to take advantage of what's available. So you're harnessing technology for success. You are using the right tools. You're using AI tools. You're doing every single thing to ensure you can stay on track with your own personal development. Nobody is going to come and tell you, oh, you have an issue when it comes to listening, and then improve that skill. Because most people in your offices, sometimes people don't want, because of how competitive it is, people don't want the best from you because everybody is in competition with you. And you are in competition with them also, rather than you being in competition with the version of the person you were yesterday. So how do we succeed? We shouldn't try to do everything alone. Look for tools that can work for you to stay on track. It's about understanding your journey, where you are, where you could be, and what's blocking you. And one thing that is blocking you from reaching that is the lack of a system. So I didn't introduce myself before. I just realized I was like, everybody here knows me. But hi, I'm DK Jonah. If you stay to this end, and if you have any questions, let me know in the chat. But I want to tell you about an amazing workshop that I have planned for 2025 on the 11th of January. But before I do that, any comments, any feedback, any questions, leave them in the chat so that we can answer them, because we've got 14 more minutes. So I've talked a little bit about the annual reset. And This annual reset has gone through different parts, and we've decided to condense everything into one day. And it's going to be on the 14th, sorry, on the 11th of January, and it's going to be a virtual event. So it's for 4 hours. Yes, 4 hours. Let's get everything done in a day. But you will get pre-work. Once the early bird ticket ends and everything ends on the 4th of January, you will get a workbook so that you can do some pre-work before coming in. But what we are looking at this year's team is alignment. We decided that the team for the Reset 1.0 was Ignite. And the research team for this one is about alignment because we realize that it's not just about reflecting, resetting, but it's about realigning yourself to ensure that you are in alignment all the time and be the best version of yourself because it helps you build that framework that you would use, that personalized framework. And the cost of the ticket is £150, but we have an early bird. I know it says it ends 31st of December a year, but it actually ends 4th of January. Correct me if I'm wrong. Oyinda or someone else in the chat can post the link to the tickets in the WhatsApp group, in the chat so that anybody that wants to register has the link. So there's no code needed for the early bird ticket. But why do I want you to come for the alignment workshop? Not just because I created it. I do the annual reset every year in phases, and this year's own is no different. It started with the decluttering challenge. Then we moved to today's session, which was going to talk about the depending on motivation, because I have listened to people, we've refined what we've done, and what we've realized is sometimes the reason we are not in alignment with our goals is our mindset. So rather than just jumping into goal setting, we decided to do things a bit different this time around. And that's why we've been on the journey. So if you don't understand what the decluttering journey is, just go to my Instagram, DK Jonah, and you'll be able to still participate in the decluttering challenge at your own pace because we've already concluded it. And what we realized is there's a lot of clutter, a lot of noise, a lot of things that are preventing us from functioning. And these things are not limited to just our clothes and our books. Sometimes our phones, our systems, different things prevent us from presenting ourselves the way we should. And in order for us to move from just that person that is talking about getting things done to the person that is getting things done consistently, then we have to be a bit more intentional about what we do and how we do what we do. So, what do you get at the end of this workshop? You get the No Gragra Alignment Planner, the exclusive Noel Gregor Alignment Planner. You also get an opportunity to do what I call, it's kind of like a vision board. We talked about life syncing our lives together, areas of our lives. But this time around, we're creating it like a life sync board. That's kind of our version of a vision board that takes these different areas of your life into consideration in order for you to actually build a system that works for you. So we're going to be focusing on building that system and ensuring that you are in alignment with the person you are now, not the person you were before. So it will start with identifying your values and doing a couple of other things that we've mentioned before in the past few minutes. But it's going to be 4 hours of intensive training. You get a major roadmap that you would use. You will get your personalized action plan that you would be able to use. So there's a 34% discount for anybody that registers between now and I think it was supposed to be 31st of December, but I decided to keep it till after my birthday to leave it at that price till after my birthday, 4th of January. However, if you have questions about the reset, just send an email to admin at nogragra.com. I will respond or anyone else will respond. And Emma or anyone that asks questions about the workshop can also just unmute and we can talk about it briefly before we end today's session. But what I would say about today is this. Your journey to lasting achievement begins now. Keep your time log. I will show you the time log a bit. Implement the 1, 2, 3 framework. do your audit, and take action consistently. If we are waiting for motivation, we won't get anything done. Now, this is the link to the workbook. Can someone share the link to the workbook also? Yes, don't worry, I've not forgotten the workbook. This is the link to the workbook, and I'm just going to do a walkthrough of the workbook briefly before we end today's session.
I have a
So,
question about
oh yes,
the
Emme, yes,
alignment workshop.
yes.
So, is it like a goal setting workshop?
I call it more of a goal execution workshop than a setting workshop, and I will explain why. We all know that goals should be set. We've set goals in the past and we've done quite a lot of things. However, what we've not done is created a system for us to achieve those goals. So it's an execution workshop where you are building your system that day. So everything you will need to achieve the goals will be done that day. So we will set the goals, we will build a system. So what do I mean by a system? I talked about the fact that the reason we are not achieving our goals is because motivation dies and we don't have a structure. And if we don't have a system that helps us to achieve those goals, then we are not going to be able to achieve them. So we're going to keep running from our goals and then not learning from them. So we're going to start with learning from the past goals and then breaking free to now set new goals that would help us to achieve the goals we want to
Okay,
achieve.
so it's more about creating a system,
Yes,
but
it's building from a system. Yes.
is the personalized so my system would be different from somebody else's system depending
Yes.
on the okay.
Yes, so the way we've done it is there are three sessions. The first one is reflection. So we'll learn from your past experience. Then we reset, which when I talked about the life singles, which are there's a purpose-driven aspect of it. There's the accountability, your working style, your concrete plans, and your aspirations. So all that will be done that day. When we do that, we then go for you to rebuild it. Because if we just focus on setting goals alone, we're not going to achieve them. But if we don't set ourselves up to achieve those goals by building systems that will help us manage the task for those goals and hold ourselves accountable, then what are we doing? We've said that to set the tone for ourselves, we need to ensure that every single thing we are doing aligns with who we are. So who are you
So
actually?
it's not so much about the goals we set because that's what everybody is doing, but really
Yes,
about setting ourselves up so that we actually achieve our goals this time around.
exactly.
Okay. Okay.
Exactly. Exactly. So I'm just going through the website. So this is the website is nogragra.com/step// annual reset. And sometimes we run from our past goals rather than learning from them. So we start with the learning experience where we reflect and we learn. And then we now move to, okay, now that we've learned, what are we doing? We are resetting, then we now build up because there's no need for us to scatter without building back up. So we then build up and we will then meet finally to see, okay, as what we've set up worked on the 25th of January. That's a bonus. But 11th of January is the day for the workshop. And the link should be in the chat. The early bird tickets ends in 20 days on the 4th of January. And we should be able to do it our own way. Because what I said is someone says, oh, is this for me?
Okay. How many people are in the class? Because it seems you're
I
going
don't
to
want
be.
a large class. I will be honest. If I know we've discussed this before, but I want it to be 20 to 30 people. I do not want a large class. I want it to be very hands-on. So it was supposed to be in person and we're going to have just 12 people, but we realized that those out of the UK wanted to be part of it. So we
Okay,
then
so you
decided
have
to
a
do
big
it
number of
remotely.
people so that you can give
Exactly.
the one-on-one attention.
You will need the one-on-one attention. And if you sign up, you also, one thing you get is a life sync alignment intensive one. We have different intensives. You get a 60 minutes one-on-one call valued at £500. redeemable within a year. So after you've set it up, you then have a one-on-one call with me, and you can redeem that between February to December 2025.
So
So
thank you.
that's the additional. Thank you for reminding me about that. So Beyond Motivation workbook. So this is the workbook, and I'm just going to, I won't put Lucky on the spot, but Lucky did an amazing job designing this, and Victoria also helped with the cover page. So he has been kind enough to tell us how to make a copy. So the first thing you realize is there are lots of tabs. There's the cover page, there is the daily, weekly, and your bonus. The cover page just is this, then you have to go to make a copy if you don't know how to make a copy. Specific instructions on how to make a copy are here. So just follow the instructions and you'll be able to make your own copy of this worksheet. Now, we talked about the daily attention tracker. Remember I said that I have put I put more notes than I should in this edition because I felt that if I'm not behind you doing it, you needed something. So this is just telling you about the time, attention, actions, interruptions, energy level, outcomes, and things you need to fill the worksheets. Then you have the worksheets here. Now, if my intention at 5 a.m. is I'm still sleeping, I will still write sleeping. But we kept it for 24 hours because we know some people work 24 hours sheets. So before the day starts, you write your intentions, you plan. I plan weekly for the new week. So I would write all my intentions for Monday. During the day, a couple of times during the day or at the end of the day, depending on you, I would then write my actions out that this is exactly what I did. Then if there were interruptions, I would write my interruptions. How was my energy? Oh, I had depleted energy, low energy, high energy. You pick out the one that shows your energy, and then you have your insights. You have that for every day of the week. We decided to separate the tabs for that. Then when it comes to attention, we now kept your attention log again, and you have gotten the document on attention. Okay, so there's a timesheet for the attention that you're supposed to keep. Now, when you've kept the log, you need a timesheet to actually say, how many hours did I spend sleeping, with my personal care, on devotion, on all these things. If you feel devotion and Bible study, you want to put them together, you can. And then you add as many other links that you can add. You just rename them and add them and you account for it. So you go to your log, say on Sunday, I spent 5 hours sleeping, 5 hours sleeping, 6 hours sleeping, 12 hours sleeping. You now have your total. So you'll be able to say, this is the amount of time I am spending on specific things. Then this is
So
the
what's the drop down of that one? Of the time?
no, there's no drop down here. There's no drop down here. So this is like a collection of it for the week. And the drop down is there a drop down here? No. Then the integration is your weekly integration. You'll be like, okay, these were my energy patterns. This is the supporting data from a daily log. What did you learn? This is the impact on my goals and next week's focus. So this is the pattern recognition one I mentioned that we introduced. Then you manage your energy. Same thing. High energy activities that I add this week, low energy activities, because you can see from the color code, oh, this color means high energy, this color means low energy. You'll be able to write the specific activities that give you high energy, low energy, or then ones that give you, then you'll be able to say what patterns from my daily logs suggest a deeper truth about my choices, and that is that. Then we have
Okay, so this whole thing, you do it just for 1 week. You do
you
it
can
just
do
for
it
1 week for
consistently,
the
but
time
what we're
log.
sorry?
Is you're trying to analyze your
Yes,
own this is, so you do it for a week.
yes, and duplicate as needed. If you
Okay.
want to do it again, just duplicate it. So you can just click on these 3 dots and say, okay, I want to do for another month. Or what I would do if I'm you is I would say Beyond Motivation Implementation Workbook, January. and then I will duplicate for another month. So the weekly attention part, the timesheet for the week, this timesheet is just 1 week. If you want to do for week 2, you just duplicate it and make another copy. So it's duplicated, and that is week 2. So we have 4 weeks. I think we should have done 4 weeks because 4 weeks makes a month. But naturally, I want you to keep it for like a month. Then you now come to your monthly one and do your deep dive. Then it will look at your motivation, because we've looked at your patterns. It looks at your motivation. It looks at your transformation. It looks about integration. How do you integrate it and make your commitment? Then I choose to focus on this pattern because you write it. This matters to my larger purpose because you write that down. And then your commitment, you are signing. It's not something that another person is doing. You're signing. And then there are some notes here for you to actually look at. And great. We now have a bonus for you, which is about the attention one. And that one talks about energy, talks about maximum attention task and all that. And you have your daily attention this 1 year with your energy level, maximum attention task, the success patterns for your maximum attention task at the end of the time. What challenging patterns you notice, and then the adjustment. So if my maximum attention task is coming for this webinar and teaching at this webinar, that's my maximum attention task. But in order to do that, I will have done other tasks to lead to it. So I can say, oh, these were my success patterns I noticed before this. These were this. That way I am also auditing myself and improving to say, okay, this is a task that you may need to break down further because you are not able to focus after 90 minutes. So it helps you to do all the things, and then there's a link to join the annual reset. But yes, all in the cover book. If you've made a copy, just duplicate the weekly ones. If you've not made a copy, Lucky will just duplicate these ones and rename week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, so that you can get the copy. So Lucky, help us do that. Make it 4 weeks, because Emma just noticed it's just for 1 week. The reason I want you to keep a time log for more than a week is sometimes if you are conscious that you're keeping it, you may just do everything and have that motivation, like we said. But by week 3, we will start seeing the truth. Motivation will start disappearing. That way you will be able to see if you are running from your past patterns or learning from them. Okay. Any other questions? Comments, feedback? So if there are no more questions, I want to say thank you so much for listening to me today. Thank you very much for listening to me today. I think it was a good conversation about patterns and much more. Oh, Brother Akbo, it's so nice to see you. Oh, that's really nice. Thank you. You can all unmute and say thank you or say hello, because we have come to the end of today's session. But it was a good
Thank you, DK.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. Thank you, Chidima. It's so good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please use your worksheets. If you have questions, ask questions. If you're in the WhatsApp group already, ask questions in there, and we will be able to kind of support each other on this journey, because no one needs to go through this alone, but we are in it together. All right. 5 minutes past my time, so I have to bid you good night.
Good night.
All
Thanks a
right,
lot,
then.
Vivian.
It was so good to see you. It after small.